This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4. Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody, go check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. There's bound to be a show there for you. Excuse me, a great way to start by burping. I had a sandwich on the way here. So. This week's guest, her name is Krystal Kent, which actually sounds like a very superhero name. How you doing, Krystal?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm good. Now I'm so appreciative of Krystal. She, the last time we had an appointment to record, I wasn't feeling well. For those of you that follow the show, and for those of you who are new, know that I suffer from anxiety, and for some reason, I just went into this panic mode. Not because Krystal is mean or anything, but just something about that day just caused me to go into a panic, and I was like, I can't do it, and then it led to a massive migraine. But thank you for rescheduling and being on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. No need to thank me. I understand those things. Being someone that has chronic illnesses myself, it would be actually not so cool if I wasn't flexible with those things. And so I'm very understanding. Maybe you were nervous because you thought I was going to use some superhero powers on you, which I have none.
Krystal Kent does sound like a superhero name. Let's face it. It has
you want a funny story? It's a funny, coincidental true story. So my last name is Kent. And for people that like superheroes, comic books, DC comic books originally published Superman, and Superman's alias was Clark Kent.
Correct.
And DC Comics was based in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from, and my biological father's initials are DC Kent.
Oh!
Crazy, right? It's all coincidental, but I like that story because it makes me sound like I'm more cool or something, because I'm totally not. I mean, if someone said, what's your superpower? I could probably say I could probably chug a pot of coffee in like 2 seconds flat. That's about it.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, but I was in the Army, so, back in the day, so coffee was like the elixir of life back then. So that's my superpower.
Now we connected on one of the advocate pages on Facebook, correct?
Yes. I think maybe Wago Health.
Correct.
Was it? I think that's what it was. Mm-hmm.
We haven't actually met or worked together. We just connected on there.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Because one of the cool things, but for somebody like me that forgets things, one of the coolest things about advocacy work is that you get to connect and work with some really amazing people. But sometimes we're just all in a conference and you're like, what conference did we meet at? But no, you and I have actually not met in person.
No, we haven't met in person, but I've actually followed you for a while. And I think for your audience to know, like one of the things that struck me about you is sometimes you just say things that are just so eloquently beautiful and inspiring. And the one thing I remember, and it was probably about 6 or 7 months ago, you posted something that said broken crayons can still color. And to this, I saved it. I was like, wow, that's brilliantly beautiful. And it just had so many layers that it could apply to anybody. And so like, that's how I know you. I know you as far as, I follow you and you sometimes like really say things that are just beautifully on point. And I thought, man, I got mad respect for him. He knows how to reach people in a way that can make them feel good about themselves, regardless of whether they're perfectly healthy or what illness they might be battling, that you say things that can reach so many people and touch them on so many levels. And that's how I started to follow you, because I thought, wow, you say some pretty profound things from time to time.
I think that was one of the positively fearless presentations that we had. I think it was one of those. Mm-hmm. I won't take credit for it. I said it and then I Googled, and apparently a lot of people have said it too. So I might have heard it somewhere down the line and it just stuck with me. But it is, I think for a lot of advocates, it's very, it's a t-shirt logo for a lot of us that do advocacy.
Yes.
We could wear that because we we feel broken, yet we still continue to work and do what we need to do.
Right. It's like it's almost like a motto.
Yeah.
That kind of, it reminds us like, hey, you can still pick yourself up and still do something awesome and still do something beautiful within the confines of what you got to work with. And that's kind of always been part of my message, is focusing on the positive, so that we can get through each day. And, I don't know if people think it's good or not, but that's kind of my approach.
Before we start getting into your story, let's go ahead and start your episode. Krystal Kent, tell us how you put it together.
How did I put it together to where I am now? So, I actually, advocacy and promoting awareness about a plethora of topics has been something I've been doing at such a young age. And I'm going to say relay some real life instances that kind of parlayed me and honed my skills to be where I am right now. So I had a brother who, at the age of 5 was diagnosed with acute lymphoid leukemia, went through rounds of chemo, and he ended up with, cardiomyopathy, and he needed a heart transplant. So the odds of getting a donor heart, and having a success, it's a 1 in a million shot. And he just wasn't one of those 1 in a million, individuals to get that shot and have that chance. So, and he passed away at 25, actually it was Christmas morning of 2004. And in the lieu of all that, like when I was in college, I started working in the developmental disabilities and mental health field, and I worked in those fields for about 20 years. And in the process, I've also, I enlisted and joined the Army, and I sustained a lot of injuries, and I have had to fight quite a bit between the Army and the VA system to get what I needed as far as my health care, and address my medical needs that stemmed from the injuries I sustained. And, I had busted my knee, my right knee, had knee surgery on it at Fort Leonard Wood Hospital Army hospital in Missouri. And then five weeks post knee surgery, I was in a military vehicle. They call it a deuce and a half, a 2.5 ton, truck. And it crashed and I got flown around like a rag doll, like, so I ended up back in the hospital because I had all this swelling. They had to literally cut off my camouflage, pants, BDUs.
Wow.
My leg was that swollen and they thought, oh, we think you have a blood clot from the surgery you had 5 weeks ago. And I was kind of like, all right, what part of like I was just thrown around like a rag doll in a military vehicle crash did you not understand? So they were injecting me with blood clots and not blood clots. They were injecting me with blood thinners because they thought I had a blood clot. And then they come to find out 3 days later I didn't. And it created this snowball effect where I ended up, with these injuries. And as a result, I developed, arthritis, traumatic bursitis, something. I'm not a doctor, so I can't pronounce half the words. And I also developed fibromyalgia. And, when I got out of the military, it was 2002 and they really did not know, that much about fibromyalgia back then, much less on a military base, much less the VA. And it wasn't until 2006 that I was actually diagnosed. And back then, the doctor was really actually, pretty cool. It was through Kaiser Permanente and they, went through my history and they kind of put everything together. And back then it was called fibromyalgia syndrome. Handed me a pamphlet and said, just get some sleep. Here's some pain meds for when you have a flare. And it wasn't anything crazy. I forget what it was, like Darvocet or something. And it was like a bottle, I don't know, like 30 with 3 refills for the year. And cause I would have these flare ups and then they would go away. And it was like back then, fast forward, the doctors now that I see, they surmised that I was like, I would flare up and then it would go in remission. But as time went on, I got worse to the point where I had to stop working. And I was like constantly in and out of the ER. And the thing of it just wasn't clicking with me that this could be fibromyalgia. All these weird things I was having happen, right. All these symptoms. And the doctors were treating the symptoms individually. And one day I just kind of sat down and I was like, I know I'm not crazy. I know this is not all in my head. These are some really tangible things that are going on. And I started to do my own research. And then I remember talking to my PCP and we were talking about potential things that it could be. And I said, well, back in 2006, they said I had fibromyalgia resulting from my injuries while I was in the military. And my doctor at the time was like, well, we don't want to just give you some type of label. Like, that's not a good label to have. But I said, well, I looked online and nothing else makes sense. And then it was from that point that I started to advocate my own healthcare needs. And I come to realize like there was all this miseducation, misinformation, misperceptions of fibromyalgia and all these barriers to getting not just appropriate treatment, but to be treated with dignity and respect as a fibromyalgia patient. And I got so frustrated that I could have done one or two things, start like going, angry, like crazy housewife mad and start cursing people out, or I, could try to change perceptions. And that's when my full-blown, legitimate patient leader advocate journey started. And that was in 2011. And since then, I created the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles on Facebook, and it's also on Instagram. It will be the 2-year anniversary for that will be next month. I've done social media awareness campaigns. The one for going in the 6th year, it's called Pop and Put on Purple for Fibromyalgia Awareness, and in May 12th, because that's National Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. And then I do monthly, I call it 4th Friday Fibro Day. All it is we use social media as a way to promote awareness, understanding, education. And it's through these channels that, because I didn't know about fibromyalgia myself and I self-educated, I thought, my goodness, there's so many doctors that don't know about this. There's so many doctors that don't know that there's 2 blood tests now to detect and diagnose to this day. One's been out since 2012. The one blood test is called FMA blood test by Genetics out in California. So I'm like, okay, it's 2019. This test has been out for 7 years. And even specialists who say they treat people with fibromyalgia either deny there's a blood test or say there isn't any. So I felt like, okay, there's this huge hole of missing information that needs to be brought to light. And I could try to educate doctors and medical personnel, but okay, I'm not a doctor. Why would they listen to me? You know?
Right.
So I thought, you know what? The best way to take on this battlefront is to arm the soldiers, my fellow fibro fighters, with the information, bring them up-to-date information, available treatment options, the blood test, understanding the symptoms, just, you know, letting them discuss different ways of coping and mechanisms they use to deal with the different symptoms, from pains to vertigo to brain fog, and create this inclusive, supportive, validating, positive community online, and share it from there. Because you and I both know the magic of social media. It could be very bad, where like negative or fake news stories explode, but it also can be positive. So I decided to use the positive part of social media with my advocacy and bring people together so they didn't feel alone. And now, I don't know how many, I have almost like 13,000 likes and like 13,000 followers on my Facebook page, and they're from people from over 30 countries. And that's awesome. It's not awesome. It's humbling. I'm like, wow, it blows my mind.
It's awesome.
It blows my mind, because I'm just like, I'm just me talking. Like, I don't know. So, and I just feel like, a way to make people feel empowered and feel validated is to give them information, because knowledge is power. So that's kind of how I came to be as far as an entity for the fibromyalgia community.
I want to go back a little bit, because you were talking about your brother and what he went through.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe, and it's more like a statement for you to follow with, I believe that when a family is struck with some kind of medical issue, the whole family, first of all, is touched by it, regardless of your age. No matter how old you are, how young you are, everybody in the family unit is going to be affected by it. Do you think that having gone through that with your brother made you more aware of taking care of your own health issues and then becoming a patient leader advocate?
So, yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you for asking. I would definitely say it played a role, because I was exposed at such a young age to the healthcare system. My brother was 5 when he was diagnosed with leukemia, and I was 8. And, you know, I just remember sitting there as an 8-year-old, like my brother having to get spinal taps. And this one time, I spent a lot of time in the hospital when I wasn't in school, because, you know, back in the 80s, they didn't have all these daycares on every corner, and people were at work. You didn't have someone to watch your kids. So I grew up, I spent a lot of time in the hospital, and I ain't gonna lie, Cleveland Clinic Foundation, your milkshakes, awesome. So anyways, just shout out, their strawberry milkshakes from the 80s were delicious. Anyways, you know, watching my brother having to go through such kind of like invasive, painful things as a child, and then, you know, nurses not being very empathetic. And I just remember one time, I don't know, my mom stepped out of the room, and this nurse was just very curt, and just, you know, something with my brother's IV moved, and, you know, my brother, he was an interesting character. He could be very difficult at times. As what 5-year-old isn't? That's sick. And, you know, she was just not very nice, as far as not good bedside manner at all, with a 5-year-old who is battling for his life. And I just remember sitting there, and I was like, you know what, Miss Nurse, you are not a nice person, and I am telling on you. And I was 8 years old. And I go walk, I'm like, oh, strutting my stuff out the hospital door, looking for my mom. My mom, I don't know where, she went to the restroom or something. And I was just like, there's a bad nurse in here. My poor mother. Me and my big mouth. But I just remember understanding at such a young age that this is not a way to approach patients. I didn't understand it. I didn't know the full, scope of it. I just knew that it just wasn't right. And I truly believe that, it does impact and mold the family and even people who are close to, individuals that are sick. My brother has a childhood friend that is grown up, a delightful young man who became a doctor. And I used to remember my brother would come home from chemo or checkups, and now other nurses who were good, like, would give him some little, like gauze or little things, because he would tell him, like, my best friend is going to cure me. And they would give him stuff to give to his friend, and they would kind of, and they were like 5 or 6, really young, and they would play like doctor, and his friend was like, I'm going to find a cure for you. And it's amazing to see, like, how, there's always a silver lining in every negative situation or tragedy. And that really is, I feel like, a silver lining, that his friend grew up and is providing, like, just exemplary medical services, and just very, very compassionate, a nice young man. And I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him that he found his path and what he wants to do. And, and it touches my heart to know, like, even as a young child, as like a 6-year-old, he wanted to help his friend,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of helping, at what point do you realize, or have you realized, because a lot of people don't, that you are an encyclopedia of knowledge that can help other people?
You know what? So here's the thing. I'm like the coolest nerd you'll ever know. I swear to this. I am a nerd. Like, I swear to goodness. And I embrace that term. I love it. I've always been a reader. I've always been a researcher. And, I guess that, it's just something I've always been one of those people that if I found a topic interesting, I didn't just read 1 or 2 things about it. I didn't just check, like, Webster's dictionary or the thesaurus. I used to spend time at the library, like, pulling out, like, books and stuff on the topic. I really was kind of a nerdy kid, and I'm still a little bit nerdy. I love knowledge. And I believe that self-education is probably one of the most important free tools at our disposal. And I think that, a lot of people do say, like, they'll say, more about fibromyalgia than the majority of doctors. And I was, presented like an award in 2017 by Health Corps as far as being a non-medical expert on fibro. What I do is that I do give my opinion on, the topic and my thoughts, but what I do is I provide, tangible facts and research studies and everything, so that people can they can educate themselves, they can share actual facts and medical research and all this other stuff about fibromyalgia that is tangible evidence about fibromyalgia, so that other people who don't understand it or think it's fake, you can't really argue facts. And I think that, I don't know if there was like this point where people are like, wow, she's just really knowledgeable or an expert. I think it was more of, wow, she's really done her research, and is helping not just us, but everybody understand. So I can't say I sat down one day and said, I'm going to become a self-proclaimed expert on fibromyalgia. I've always had a thirst for learning. So
I think those titles come, it's kind of like, I'm only going to use this as a biblical reference for this moment, but I think it's kind of those like God came down and like Mary and Jesus, like, okay, I'm going to make you an expert in this. I think that as advocates, we don't really choose it. I think advocates kind of chooses us. And all of a sudden people are coming to you like the three wise kings and going, what do we do? And you're like,
exactly what you just said. You're like, I don't know. It could be overwhelming and not in a bad way. It's very humbling. But then you kind of have that bit of, what if I do not stay on top of everything? What if I miss something? What if I, miss a comment that someone needs support, or what if I give wrong information? I triple check all the information that I share, but what if, and it's like, wow, like people are like, wow, you're this expert, you're this patient leader, you're this advocate. And I just am like, I'm just this person that has the same medical condition as you are. And it was through my journey that I learned so much. And I want to make it easier for everybody else to kind of get around or overcome the barriers much easier than I did. I don't know, for lack of a better term, like everything I went through, I'm using it in a positive manner as a tool to kind of pave the way or make it a little bit easier for other people, especially with this younger generation that's coming up. I feel that with the younger medical personnel and professionals, and then individuals that are being diagnosed with not just fibromyalgia, but other invisible illnesses, we're seeing a turning point of a little bit more openness. And I have individuals that are underage, that are teenagers following my page because they have been diagnosed with it. And it's important to me to, give them the information they need so that they can hit the ground running. Cause I didn't have that. I had to go through a lot to get where I was getting to. And I thought, man, I'm a pretty solid person. I'm very forward with my mouth, in my opinion. I don't back down easily when I disagree with something or don't like how I'm treated. It doesn't mean that I'm mean about it, but I stand my ground or I advocate for myself. And so I imagine if I had these problems, how would someone else who might be afraid to speak up or be someone that's a young adult or, underage at a doctor's appointment, being treated in a manner of, well, you're the child of the doctor. I know better. And that's why I find it's important to make sure that you're sharing information that's on point, because you're helping individuals avoid the barriers that, I've incurred or you've incurred or any advocate has incurred. Right. That's kind of the point of, one of the points of being an advocate or promoting awareness is helping pave the way for easier journey for other people. Right.
There's another thing that, and I'd like you, if you have a point of view on this, separating facts from feelings. Mm-hmm. I always tell people there's a time for feelings, and we'll talk about those and we'll address those. But mm-hmm. when you're at a conference, when you're at a doctor's office, when you're speaking in front of other people, put the facts out, because that's what's going to get the information out. My feelings towards HIV, cancer, ostomies, mental health issues could be very different from your feelings from it, especially if you haven't lived them. But if I state the facts of what happens to my body, my mind, and my energy per se, then maybe you can understand that. And now we could find a similarity between, let's say HIV and fibro. We can be like, oh, okay, I get you. Okay, now we can speak the same language. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's really, like, I am passionate about, promoting awareness and advocating. But I do tell people, I said, it's okay to be emotional, but you attract more bees with honey than vinegar, meaning that you know what? It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be all these things. Your feelings are valid. I've been there, but unfortunately, when you're trying to advocate for your needs or advocate for someone else, the one downfall about feelings is that sometimes they're just not conducive with getting your message across. And then you're dealing with another human being that has feelings as well. And then it's like a whole like mesh ball of garbage.
Right.
And so, you know, for myself, like, if I go to a doctor and I'm providing them information about what's going on with me, I also print stuff to bring with me, and I write down what I need to outline, so that kind of keeps me on topic, makes it less likely for me to get emotional. But I will also tell the doctor or another provider, like, you know, I do get frustrated because I can't vacuum because I'm so sick. And then I feel like I'm feeling myself, but it's not my fault, and it's the illness. So I will say, so what do you think we can do to make me more functional so that I could do these daily living tasks, and then I have a better outlook about myself, you know? So I tell people it's okay to like bring about some of those emotions, as long as you're doing it in a manner where it is more of an educational standpoint versus adversarial, you know, but not to say like if someone, I've had a couple medical professionals that were not medically professional, and
I like that.
I was like, what the healthcare is going on? I did put them in their place, but I didn't curse them out. I did not threaten them, but I did, you know, tell them, you know, one doctor, I did say, you know what? I'm the customer here. Forget patient. I'm like, my health insurance and what I pay out of pocket is what helps you put food on the table. And I deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And if I go anywhere else and receive poor customer service and I file a formal complaint, you know, at a sales store, there's ramifications. And I said, you know, you need to understand that there's patient advocates at every facility through healthcare insurance companies. And, you know, I am not afraid to have a conversation with a patient advocate as far as how you're treating me. Cause I had a doctor tell me like, I was crazy. It was all in my head and that I was attention seeking and it was somatic. And this was only a couple years ago. And I was just like, oh, I was like, I get it. I'm blonde. I'm blue eyed. So you probably thought I was going to be docile. No, like, you know, in those instances, I will be very upfront, but I'm not, you know, I'm not cursing like a sailor, but I make my message clear, like, this is not acceptable behavior. And like, if you don't know or up to date on a medical condition, you should not be treating individuals with it, because that is a form of negligence, because you know, you can inadvertently hurt someone either physically or emotionally.
Yeah, I had a doctor recently. I was up for a review on Social Security for my disability. And mind you, I've been on disability for 18 years because of my conditions. So I changed doctors, and the new doctor had only seen me twice. And on the paperwork, the question is posed in a way that it really does get confusing, because it asks, does the patient look disabled? And does the patient look like he has mental issues or mental health issues? Well, obviously I don't look mental health sick, because I've worked very hard to make sure that by the time I walk out of the house, I have not had a panic attack. I do not, you know, I've gone through the necessary steps to make sure that I function on the streets. And HIV, God bless, does not leave us spotches or marks on their bodies anymore. So, the question is posted in a way that it really should make the doctor think, well, no, it doesn't look it, but here's the record. So he said that no, I did not. I neither looked nor acted like I was disabled. So it caused a big old turn. Finally, he turned around, but mainly because he texted me to tell me that he was not going to sign. Texted me.
Wow.
Yeah.
How professional.
Yeah. I'm like, I basically got like turned down like I was last night's hooker, saying, thank you for your services, but I won't be seeing you again. I told Social Security all this. I was like, look, he's a new doctor. He got mad because I had him consult with my old doctor to get history information. And then he texted me to tell me that he did not appreciate me talking to other doctors about him.
Well, see, and here's the thing that I tell people all the time. I'm like, doctors, that's just what they do for a living. They're all people first, and some people's characteristics are a little bit more flawed than others. So,
Yep.
And to understand that, sometimes, there could be a really good doctor that's having a really bad day. And that can shape anyone's mentality for the day. I find it interesting that, this really goes back to a systematic advocacy issue with the question. I live in the state of Ohio, so they don't have questions for disability reviews or medical compensation or short-term disability or SSDI or SSI. In Ohio, that type of question's not on the review. And what happens is, does someone look like XYZ? That is actually almost a prejudice question.
Yeah.
Because, you know what? My brother had cardiomyopathy. At 20-some years old, looking at him, does he look like he needs a heart transplant? No. But does he still need it? Yes. Can he lift 10 pounds? No. And that is not a very, clinically based question.
Yeah.
So I would me personally, I advocate with that Social Security office of that state saying this is not a clinically appropriate question because it's based on opinion and not fact. And we're putting doctors in the position of giving opinions, and that's outside of the scope of their practice. They need to give clinical facts.
Yeah. What bothered me, along the lines of, and I don't want to get into my story, this episode's about you, but I was just saying it was kind of like a disclaimer or a side note of sometimes facts and feelings get in the way of each other, and we have to be very careful about what we put out there. So I'm again, I'm out of the dark on this one, so we're clarifying it, and I will wait. I'm waiting for something to happen for me to take some action and going to Social Security and going, this isn't cool. This is not okay. This is not going to work. But I need to wait for some backup. I can't be a superhero just yet. I have to wait for my
Sure you can. I'll mail you a cape.
I'm waiting. Actually, I have a cape. I will take a picture of it. Long story short, one of my case workers, the case manager told his wife about me, and she's like, how does he have all this energy? And he's like, I don't know. So they made me this green cape that says Super Daniel, SD on the back, Super Daniel. And it ties up, it's a bow tie at the front. And the green, yeah, I haven't taken a picture with it. I'll take a picture with it one day. Let's go back. Yeah.
You should be like, cool. Dun, 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 dun.
Maybe I'll take it to the next conference. I'll take it with me and wear it around.
You totally should. I'd love to see that.
I was going to ask you next. We're not quite there yet. We still have a couple more minutes. One of the things that has happened, for instance, I have my HIV Positive Life page, which is all about HIV, and it's an all-inclusive page. Like anything I see out there on HIV or HIV-related secondary effects, like for instance, for me, cancer, ostomy, mental health, I'll post it on there and people can gather their own information out of it. Anyway, one of the best things that has happened out of that page is, like you, people from other countries write me in or write in their language. And I say this all the time, like, thank you, Google Translate.
I know, right?
Because I'm able to translate what they're saying and then answer them in their language.
Yes.
They don't have to translate. They get information in their language up to date to what I have. Which, like you, I'm like, I just do what I do. There's nothing, like, I don't see anything to it.
Right.
Knowing somebody else, you, that does the same thing, in my eyes, I'm like, you're freaking awesome. That is like kick-ass. That is so kick-ass because not everybody takes the time to do that. I've been part of different pages where they don't cater to Spanish or Italian or Portuguese or whatever. I have a lot of Portuguese, Filipino, and African countries that write to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you able, or are you capable to see the wonderful job that you're doing in that aspect?
So here's the thing. I don't see it as a job. And the other thing is, I do not call the people who participate in my page followers. I call them friends. Because even though I'm putting out information and trying to help people understand their illness and how to best, advocate for their healthcare needs, how to understand, applying for disability for their medical conditions, I see it as a community of friends, and our golden thread that ties us together is our diagnosis of fibromyalgia. But as I've interacted with these people, it's like I get to see like all the beautiful components of their personalities and get to know, what is going on from their, day-to-day life. And I'm sharing pictures of their babies with me or their new puppy, so for me, I don't see it as a job, and I see it being just as wonderful for me and awesome for me to have all these friends who have an invested interest in not only I have to say, but actually care about my well-being. And so, I do think I am doing something that is a little bit different than some other communities. Because the unfortunate thing with fibromyalgia is you find a lot of negativity because it's a hard illness to live with and contend with. And because it's invisible, and I'm sure you can relate to this, when you have an invisible illness, people don't fully understand it, or they don't understand how you could be fine 1 minute and then the next minute you're not fine, or how you could be well enough to go to your friend's house the night before and then the next day you can't move. It's so, I think what I try to do is maintain an atmosphere, an environment on social media that tries to maintain a positive outlook, that, I treat people the way I want to be treated. Hold me accountable when I'm being, out of whack, so to speak, or if I'm speaking out of turn or I'm just totally not right about something. We all have flaws, and I recognize I have flaws myself. But in the same token, I need something that isn't focused on the negative all the time, because it's very easy to go down that slippery slope when you have a chronic illness, and justifiably so, it is justifiable to kind of slip down that slippery slope a little bit. However, that is just not a really good state of living, because there's so much barriers with our illness, because of the negative impact and how our symptoms affect us, the last thing I want is to hang out with a group of people who are a bunch of negative Nancy's and Debbie Downers. And because then it brings me down. So one of the things I focus on, which a lot of people have given me feedback that's different, is that, I try to focus on the positive. Like if I see someone struggling, I kind of, swoop in and say, hey, you got this. We're in this together. We can do this. We can be, positive agents of change for all of us. We can do this, one post at a time, one, sentence at a time. That's all it takes, and so, when people compliment me, I'm very humbled by it, because I look at it as these are really my friends. Over time, I'm invested in them. They're invested in me, and we are in this together, and we feel united. We're a community that loves and supports each other. And at the end of the day, that's what makes it awesome. Not what I put out there, because I can put out whatever I want, but it takes a community, like a beloved community, to set the tone and keep that tone in that direction. So all I am is kind of like the conduit of that, and everybody else has their part in it. So, I can't really take full credit, 100% credit for the, I guess, environment, on my social media pages and within the community, because it takes a village, right? So, and then not to say, there's times I have to remind people, like, hey, and I do have to remind people. There are times I do post a event session, usually once a month, and that's when I allow people to kind of go for a free for all. They can say what they want, but I try to kind of curb like some of the language, because I do have individuals that a lot following the page that are underage. And I also feel that we also as adults need to be responsible in being good role models for these individuals, because while I'm 43 and been dealing with this for 19 years now, it's like, okay, I had a 16-year-old message me yesterday, and I was just floored, like how she just felt, I don't know. It just felt, she felt included, and it felt like it was like, for once she felt inspired and positive. And I'm like, wow, she has her whole life. I've only been dealing with this for a small part of my life. She's going to have a lot more miles at the end than I do. So the other thing is to be a positive role model on how to cope with it. So, well, but I appreciate anyone that compliments me. I really do. And I don't try to, downplay it, but I'm just very humble. So,
well, I have the fortune of talking to a lot of advocates on the show. So it gives me great pleasure when I'm able to talk to one and go, you kick ass.
Oh,
and the page would not be the page had you not had the instinct to start it. So whether you want to or not, you are the leader. You are the head of that group, and they might be friends, but they're still following you. They're still, you're still a guiding light. And
oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
And if you don't have to accept it, you don't have to admit it, but I will say it on the air. So there, it's recorded now. Haha. So we've gotten to the point of the show. We're about 45 minutes in, where I ask my guest to share some words of wisdom with the audience. So Krystal Kent, patient leader advocate, what words of wisdom do you have?
Oh boy. You know what? One thing I always say is, despite how bad things are, there's always a silver lining. At times it might be nickel plated, but it's still silver. And no matter how bad it is at times, it will pass. It might pass like a kidney stone, but it's still gonna pass.
No.
Words of wisdom, I don't know, so much if it's just, wise words or knowledgeable, but I always tell people that the best advocate is yourself. And the best way to advocate for yourself is to educate yourself, because knowledge is power. And, you know, the other thing is like, we all have our down days. And I actually just posted something today, and it was, you know, something like, to everybody that has been down, you know, knocked down more times they can count, but still get up. Like, you're awesome. You know, for those people who, despite the days of sadness and frustration, you still find a smile, a reason to smile, or to smile at someone else. You're awesome. You know, despite being heartbroken at times, you still give more than you expect to receive. You know, for those individuals, like, that's what makes them awesome, and they, you know, are making the world a better place. And to remember that, you know, every day is just one step at a time on our journey, and to take it at whatever pace you want to. You owe no one an explanation. You don't have to explain yourself. You do not have to justify yourself. Unless if you're being a jerk. Don't be a jerk. Then you don't have to justify yourself. But, you don't owe anybody anything. You really don't. The only person you owe anything to is yourself, and to always make yourself care your number one priority, because you're the only person that can do your self-care. No one else can do it. So, you know, those, I don't know if they're words of wisdom or just good advice, but
tomato.
Like, right.
Yeah. So, in the biography of Krystal Kent,
yes.
What would be the first sentence?
Oh, what would be the first sentence? Once upon a time in a land far, far away. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea, to be honest with you. That could change from day to day. I would say that the first sentence would actually be a description or adjectives before even introducing me. Like, you know, tenacious, loudmouthed, passionate, funny, quirky, goofy, nerdy. That's Krystal Kent. That would be like the first line of my biography.
Cool. I like that. That's an original one. Nobody's ever put it that way. I like that. And if you could name this episode, what would you name it?
Ooh, so many awesome things I could say. You know what? I would name this episode Two Friends Promoting Understanding Love for Everyone Else.
Cool.
And telling everyone to be awesome. I don't know. Just be you and be awesome. Yay, you. Be your own cheerleader. No, I would just say two friends keeping it real, and having a candid discussion. Because we're talking about chronic illnesses, but there's so many things that you and I brought up that can apply to regular everyday situations. You know, like, I'd be at work and I'd sit there when I, you know, was able to work, and I'd be like, man, if I can deal with my clients, I should be able to deal with my coworkers. Ding, ding, ding. It's called patience, Krystal. You know, like, there's just so many things that I think that you and I have brought up that really are applicable, to everyday life. And like I said, one of the things with you that is always, you know, I pay attention is, you know, maybe you might feel broken, but broken crayons still color.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that applies to everybody in any situation. So that's why I said this episode, I just say two friends kicking it, talking about life.
I like that. So we've been talking a lot about, your life, your advocacy, you being there for people. Who's there for you? Who lifts you up?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I'm not saying that in a bad way. You know, I do have some friends that I'm fortunate. They do not have fibromyalgia, but they really do, you know, they really do check on me. And they'll say, you know, like, how strong I am and how positive I am. And, you know, they'll be like, hey, I'll get a random text message from them. They'll be like, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you and that I love you and you're awesome. My parents are very supportive as well. I'm very fortunate. And with that said, one of the things I've come to learn and realize is that, especially when you have invisible, debilitating illnesses, because other people can't see it, people's level of support of, you know, you, the collective you, general you, is not, I would say, as supportive or understanding. I'm fortunate that my parents are understanding. I've never felt like I've needed to explain myself. But again, you know, I think with my mom and going back to the situation with my brother, I mean, she was a very young mother. My mom, I'm 43. My mom's only 19 years younger than me. So, or I mean, older. I'm like making my mom younger. Let's reword that and restate that again, Krystal. My mom was a very young mother with a 5-year-old child that was sick. So, I mean, she gained a lot of wisdom at a young age. And honestly, that's a silver lining as, you know, as bad or the outcome of the situation with my brother was and what inevitably happened, you know, that silver lining is because of that, I think that my mom has a better understanding of what it's like to battle, you know, individual illness and having a lot of like negative commentary or people not understanding or being like, well, you don't look sick or you're faking or you can't be that bad or, you know, you just, you know, need to sleep more or, you know, you're just depressed or you need to eat a gluten-free diet. I'm like, oh Lord. I'm like, yeah, I'm like Italian and not eating pasta is like Chinese water torture. But, so really, you know, sometimes the most negative situations, there are little small beacons of hope and silver. And because of that, I think that's, you know, one of the things that makes my mom so supportive. And I have family that also has fibromyalgia, but, you know, I feel that I'm very fortunate compared to a lot of individuals battling either fibromyalgia or some other chronic invisible illness because I have a lot of cheerleaders. I don't know why, because sometimes I'll be like, I don't even like how I run my own mouth. I'm like, shoo, so I don't know how they could stand me at times, but I'm fortunate that I have people that I could call and say, whether it's like I need to go to the hospital or I can say I'm having a bad day and they'll say, it's okay to have a bad day. You know, I'm fortunate that I have that. And I don't take that for granted. And I have my dogs. I know it sounds crazy, but dogs are awesome. And, they're really good boys, but I had to put them away for this because my one is really egotistical. Whenever I go and do like a Facebook live video or I do a conference call like this video, he likes to jump on my lap and look at himself. And for like your followers, if they don't know, when we're doing these things, it looks like, you know, I could see you and I could see myself. It's like looking in a mirror and my dog looks at himself. I don't know. He's like the most metrosexual dog I've ever had. I just don't even understand it. I go, you know, I'm on a couple of, committees now. I'm on the Wago Health, Patient Leader Advisory Board. And I'm also, now a part of the, Board of Trustees. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for the Fibromyalgia, Care Society in New York. And, you know, it's like whenever he sees me prop up my phone or my iPad, he's like, it's like I could give him like a bone and put him in another area of the house. And he's like, ooh, it's time for me to look at myself. And he just comes running. And then you just hear him panting. And people are like, what's going on over there? I'm like, it's my dog. He's egotistical. He likes to look at himself. But I'm lucky that I have him because my one dog is the companion caregiver and my other one that is egotistical, he's my comedian. And to be honest, like it's really good to have that because it gives me something to get up and get out and do something, responsibility, and make me laugh.
That's awesome. So before we go, we're down to the end. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
So on Facebook, real quick, I actually also started another it's like we have a coalition of us fibromyalgia advocates. We started the Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. So you can find us there on Facebook. And then my main page of advocacy, support, and information is called the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles. And that's on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm trying to think if I'm sometimes I'm in articles or I write an article, but whatever. So those are the two main that you'll find me. The Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles on Facebook and Instagram, and then Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia on Facebook.
Cool. And any final last words to people listening?
At the end of the day, just make sure that, you take a moment and appreciate yourself, because regardless of whether you have a chronic illness or not, every day has its own little battles built in, and you overcame every single one and you made it through the day. So pat yourself on the back. You did awesome.
Cool.
Be proud. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
You have a very great and light energy about you.
Oh, thank you.
It's definitely contagious, because I was not feeling in the mood today for much, but I wanted to chat with you. Like, I want to chat with her.
Oh,
so I'm glad I did, because now I'm a little more relaxed. Everybody.
Real quick, we both do Reiki. That's why.
That's
but I'm
true.
I'm not a master like you, so I bow down to you. I'm a level 2 Reiki practitioner. But
that's another conversation for another day. We'll have to connect with that. For everybody out there listening, thank you for joining us. Krystal Kent, patient leader advocate / superhero, has been with us today, talking about fibromyalgia and her live. Remember, as usual, all her links will be on the Facebook page when her show airs, so pay attention. I want to thank again my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Go check us out at normalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Go check me out. There's a lot of good stuff coming out, especially with the Better You workshops. We've got more workshops coming out, and with the Put It Together community conversations, Coach Tommy Lee will be back with us again. Life Coach Tommy will be back with us again to do some more conversations on being better you. So pay attention to those. Make sure to follow us on Facebook for all that information. For now, I want to thank Krystal. I want to thank all of y'all for listening. And this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.